On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, as first reported by yours truly, Kentucky is very, very, very good. Ran Miami off the court this week. Reed Sheppard comes off the bench and is incredible. I mean, he is lighting up college basketball right now. I can't get enough of that kid. But the entire team is playing great basketball. And this was a horrendous matchup for Miami. Miami is a team that is very guard dominant. Likes to get up and down the floor, shoot threes. They play a very 2023 style of basketball. And Kentucky, this specific Kentucky team does as well, except they do it better. They're faster. They're more athletic. And my God, what a performance that was from Kentucky. So, welcome to everybody that is now jumping on the Kentucky bandwagon. Welcome. We've kept your seat warm. We've been here for a couple months now. It's good to have you join us. In other ACC SEC Challenge news, Arkansas gets a much-needed win over Duke at Bud Walton Arena after appearing on the Fraud Power Rankings last show, I should say, which I kind of saw coming. I mean, when we were doing the show, I had to put them on the Fraud Power Rankings, but this game had been circled on Arkansas' schedule forever, and that place is bonkers. I have to get to a game there. I have to so badly. It was an absolutely insane atmosphere. No Trayvon Mark, but Arkansas didn't really need him because they just kind of punked Duke, dude. Their defense was awesome. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Carolina hung 61 points on Tennessee in the first half, a Tennessee program who is supposedly one of the better defensive programs in the country. Not even supposedly, has been in the past. Dalton Connect had a historic night. I am falling in love with that kid. I'm not falling in love with that kid. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. I already fell in love with that kid. Cannot get enough of him. 37 points. Sets a Dean Dome visitor record, but at what cost? Rolls his ankle horrendously. It feels like he's going to be out for a little while. Very sad there. But Carolina offense was humming, and Tennessee kind of has a Dalton. I don't know. We'll talk about it a little bit. But the Dalton Connect calculus that's going on where it's like he's kind of – not even kind of. He's costing them on defense, but my God, the offense that he brings to the table is absolutely insane. Virginia gets a big W over Texas A&M. A bunch of other games happen. And Jon Rothstein's here to talk about it. I got Jon on the show to talk about the SEC and ACC games. Talked about that and so much more. Villanova was a topic of conversation, losing at home to St. Joe's. St. Mary's slide we talked about. Gonzaga a little bit. All sorts of other stuff. Jon's the best, and you all know who Jon Rothstein is, and You've all heard and watched him on this show. So, it was great to have Jon on the show. And also one more thing we're doing on the show, in honor of my love of Dalton Connect and Reed Sheppard, I decided I got to do a cold-ass white boy power rankings because this is something's happening in college basketball right now. Where like I'm falling in love with these white dudes a little too much, where it's like a little concerning, where I'm catching myself and I'm saying like, be careful, Mark. You are getting a little older. Are you turning into an old basketball fan where you're falling for the gritty lunch pail type, the tropes. I don't think so. I think Dalton Connect and Reed Sheppard are transcendent. I think they are cold ass white boys. So I thought I got to put together my power rankings because there are a lot in college basketball right now, and I that's what I want to do. So I want to flesh this out. I want to talk about these dudes that I'm doing the cold-ass white boy power rankings because Dalton Connect and Reed Sheppard are, spoiler alert, they're on the list, but they're also they're doing something to me. I can't get enough of these two guys. I will watch every second of basketball they play this year if I can help it. So we're doing that on the show today after we talk to Jon. Jon Rothstein coming up first, though. Please enjoy. All right, Jon Rothstein is here. Always a pleasure to see Jon's face on this show. Very excited to talk to Jon. We just got done with the ACC SEC Challenge, Jon. As these conference challenges always typically go, you can kind of make whatever conclusion you want from these things. Like you can point to one game where an ACC team beat the SEC team and say that's proof that the ACC is better. You could do the opposite. But what was your big takeaway? Like, what's the biggest lesson you feel like you learned from the ACC and SEC games that we saw this week?
Well, Mark, I don't really put as much stock into something like this as other people because there are different ways to measure, obviously, the value and really how productive a conference is. Some people like to value it as, how many teams does a conference put in the NCAA tournament? But conversely, other conferences like the ACC has not had the volume in the NCAA tournament that a league like the Big Ten has had, but the ACC has performed better recently in the NCAA tournament than the Big Ten. So I love these early season matchups because it gives you litmus tests with real meat on the bone. But it also goes to show you just how much can change over a couple days. Tennessee, okay, everybody viewed as the best defensive team in college basketball at the start of this week. It gave up 100 points against North Carolina and Chapel Hill. Arkansas was in a situation where entering this week, it was surrendering an average of over 80 points a game against power conference opponents. Then if you looked and evaluated Arkansas personnel-wise, you would say, well, the Razorbacks' best player is Tremont Mark. He doesn't play against Duke, and Arkansas beats the Blue Devils just a couple of days after winning just one game out of 3 in the battle for Atlantis. In the game they won, they were fortunate to win against Stanford. But remember, Mark, it's not anarchy. It's just college basketball.
Well, I think I had 2 massive takeaways. One was that Bud Walton Arena is quickly shooting up the ranks. Now, it was already pretty high up in the ranks of college basketball arenas. Yeah. But when I'm watching that Duke game last night, no disrespect to Arkansas's team. I know they were put in a desperate position. They have a ton of talent. Muss is a great coach.
Yeah.
But as I'm watching that game, I'm just thinking, these fans are winning this game for like that atmosphere is great. At halftime, they're trying to interview Jon Scheyer, and I think it was Chris Button interviewing Jon Scheyer, and she was like, "John, this atmosphere is crazy. It's super loud. How are you and your guys controlling your emotions?" And Jon Scheyer just literally goes, "What'd you say? I can't hear you." And I thought that was a perfect encapsulation of what that was. My other takeaway, John. These Kentucky Wildcats, going into the season, I was banging the drum. I was saying they're being undervalued. I don't understand. I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing. Everyone's putting dirt on John Calipari's grave way too quickly. This team looks so good, so athletic, and they seem to prove that against Miami. Kentucky's for real, right? Kentucky's for real. We can say it now?
Yeah, this is the best perimeter that John Calipari has had with Kentucky since a perimeter that a lot of people, I think, forgot because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Kentucky was 25-6 at the time of the 2020 NCAA tournament being canceled. The perimeter of that team was Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickley, and Ashton Hagans. This is the best perimeter crop since then. And, Mark, you look at the numbers, and we're still very early in the season, but the plus minus right now, as of today, with Reed Sheppard on the floor for Kentucky is greater than the plus minus when Anthony Davis was on the floor for Kentucky during the 11-12 season when Kentucky won the national championship. But Mark, remember this for one more day. This is only November.
Reed Sheppard. Okay, I gotta be careful, John, because my Reed Sheppard love and my Dalton Connect love are like a runaway freight train right now, where I'm just saying shit and I'm not even sure if I fully believe it, but I'm starting to think it's becoming more and more rational. Reed Sheppard, is he the best player on Kentucky? He's coming off the bench. I think he's going to continue to come off the bench because he's a Kentucky guy through and through. If you're looking at Kentucky players and you're trying to figure out what guy would not. Would be okay with the ego hit. It's a kid that grew up in Kentucky. His dad won a national championship for Kentucky. I think Reed Sheppard is going to be okay in that role. I don't expect him to start, but I'm watching these Kentucky games. He's averaging 25 minutes a game, which is it's a fair amount off the bench. 12 points per game, 3.6 assists, 3.5 steals. He's shooting 63% from three-point line as a true freshman, which most guys at the high school, you go from a high school level to a school like Kentucky, everyone's a little taller, a little more athletic. The game's moving a little faster. You're not shooting 63%. I know it's early. He's not going to finish the season shooting 63%. How crazy is it for me to say the words, Reed Sheppard is the best player on Kentucky?
Well, I think the one thing we need to look at is this, and there's a big difference in this because everybody likes to obviously key in on people who are going to be selected very high in the NBA draft. That doesn't always directly relate to who is really, really effective and the best players in college basketball. Kentucky has better long-term prospects in its program than Reed Sheppard, but make no mistake about it. Right now, as of today, Reed Sheppard is unequivocally Kentucky's best basketball player. And you look right now, Mark, at college basketball really throughout the last couple of years. Obviously, you need elite talent to win a national championship. You need elite talent to get to a Final Four. But look at some of the teams, obviously, last year that went the furthest in the NCAA tournament. San Diego State was not a team that was filled with many long-term pros. You could say the same thing potentially about Florida Atlantic. That story has to play out. Obviously, too, Miami had great college players, Jordan Miller, Isaiah Wong, but this wasn't obviously like a Duke team in 2015 that had Justice Winslow, Jahlil Okafor, Tyus Jones, Quinn Cook, all those guys. It wasn't a Kentucky team in 2012 that had the 1 and 2 pick in the draft and Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I think sometimes we get in such a rush to have a discussion about forecasting the next NBA draft. We don't always look at, well, who can be the best player in college basketball? Make no mistake about it. Right now, November 30th, when we're taping this, Reed Sheppard is the best basketball player on Kentucky's roster.
Let's go, John. I just needed to hear someone else say it. I'm glad you feel the same. Pivoting away from the ACC SEC, what just in general, what to you has been the biggest surprise of the season so far? We're not even a month into the season, but is there anything that not necessarily that you're wrong about or whatever else that you thought coming into the season, but you're just like, wow, that's really shocking what I'm witnessing right now from this team, good or bad?
One thing I never thought I would write, one thing I never thought I would say on November 30th is that St. Mary's is sub 500 with a 3-4 record, especially considering St. Mary's was returning so much from last year's team that, went to the NCAA tournament, lost to UConn in the second round. And we're at a situation now where St. Mary's, led by Randy Bennett, has been obviously exceptionally meticulous in putting together its non-conference schedule. And St. Mary's now needs to move the needle in a couple of these final non-conference games, or else it's going to have to do major work, especially against Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's has a neutral site game coming up Friday night against Boise State. And then we'll also be in a situation where it will play at Colorado State, which now becomes obviously a quad one opportunity. But if St. Mary's doesn't win those games, it's going to have a hard time putting together an at-large resume to the NCAA tournament. The loss to Weber State, the epitome of brutality right there, really set St. Mary's back. They went winless in Las Vegas, and they also lost to a very solid Utah team on Monday night. So here we are on the cusp of December, and St. Mary's has lost 2 games at home in Moraga. That's shocking to me. How
does that impact Gonzaga? Because you have a situation in the West Coast Conference where St. Mary's was supposed to be the 1 and the 2, as it often is in the West Coast Conference. It's St. Mary's and Gonzaga. The number 1 contender we all thought in the West Coast, and they might still end up being the number 1 contender, but St. Mary's is not great right now. And then BYU is obviously, who is great, BYU is off to a really hot start, playing great basketball. They've gone to the Big 12. Do you think that affects? Is there a trickle down with Gonzaga where it's like the West Coast Conference, who if I remember correctly, has been great the last couple years? Is shaping up to be not as strong this year. Do you think that will impact Gonzaga in the long run, or do you think Gonzaga has reached a point as a program where they can live above the fray?
Well, I think if we're talking about this year for the West Coast Conference, the team I want to keep an eye on is Santa Clara. Santa Clara got a split last week at the Emerald Coast Classic, beat Oregon, also lost to your alma mater, Ohio State. But, in studying Santa Clara's schedule, they have been very meticulous, Mark, in the way that they've scheduled, that they couldn't get quad 1 opportunities. They've went really hard in quad 2. Santa Clara is going to play a neutral site game in New Mexico against New Mexico in a couple of weeks. They're also going to play a game against Yale, who's one of the favorites in the Ivy League. So they have really worked hard to put together a meticulous non-conference schedule. But if you're looking at things from Gonzaga's perspective, part of the reason why Gonzaga has been because we have seen Gonzaga play such a vicious non-conference schedule. And again, think about what's on the horizon for Gonzaga. You've got a neutral site game still on the books against USC in Las Vegas. You have a game against Washington, who looks to me right now like a team that's going to compete for a bid. You also have a game in Seattle against Connecticut in December. And then a lot of people forget this because it's going to be played in February, but Gonzaga is going to play a game against Kentucky at Rupp Arena.
That's right.
So those are still 4 opportunities in addition to conference play that Gonzaga is going to have to move the needle.
So you're saying even if the West Coast Conference stinks and St. Mary's ends up not being very good and Santa Clara is – they are. I think Santa Clara is an unbelievable basketball team. I think anybody that beats Santa Clara significantly certainly deserves the respect of the college basketball world, John. So, yeah, I do think Santa Clara is good. But no matter how good or bad or otherwise the West Coast Conference is, Gonzaga's non-conference schedule is so strong that they will be fine in the long run. And, like, it won't ultimately impact them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think Gonzaga will be fine in terms of putting together a resume for the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's still too early, I think, to forecast what the seed could look like. But we also need to wait and see what Gonzaga's wins against Syracuse and UCLA will amount to later in the year. Syracuse obviously had a feel-good win against LSU earlier this week, and UCLA, I thought after the first 3 games was really, really behind, but the ability for UCLA to play well in defeat against Marquette and get the play that they've gotten so far out of Sebastian Mack, who has been one of the most productive freshmen in the country, changes obviously the mindset a little bit around UCLA, but UCLA has got to get more to Dylan Andrews at point guard. They got to get more out of Adai Mara. They got to get more out of Berke Bayuk-Tunsell, all these guys to really be a force atop the Pac-12 like they've been under Mick Cronin.
What do we make of Villanova losing last night at home to St. Joe's in a game that wasn't particularly competitive for a lot of that game? And I know St. Joe's, gave Kentucky a great game in Rupp, and St. Joe's is no slouch, but to see a Villanova program that dominated the Big Five all those years under Jay Wright suddenly is now lost to Pennsylvania. They've lost to St. Joe's at home. But they also smacked Maryland around. They won the battle for Atlantis. We're a few weeks into the season, and the ups and the downs we're going through with this Villanova team, I can't make any sense of it. Can you, John?
It's one of the most unique resumes early in the season that I've seen in quite some time, because you look at it and you said it, there's 4 power conference wins on there. Maryland, Texas Tech, Carolina, Memphis. I count Memphis as a power conference team. Then you have losses to St. Joe's and Penn, who should deserve full credit for the job they did. But this is what we got to remember. After this weekend, Villanova is going to have 22 games left in the regular season. So you think about the makeup of those 22 games, 20 Big East games. Then you have a game against UCLA on December 9th and a return part of a home-and-home series. And then next week, you go to Kansas State to the Octagon of Doom to take on the Wildcats as part of the Big East Big 12 battle. So after this weekend, every single game that Villanova will play will be against the power conference opponent. So every game is going to be at the highest standard. We've yet to see, obviously, if this team is going to be able to handle that on a consistent basis. I was very impressed by Villanova at the battle for Atlantis. Obviously, the foundation of Moore and Dixon is outstanding, but Villanova, too, is going to go through the gamut, as it always has, really the last 10 years under Jay Wright and now Kyle Neptune with the schedule.
Yeah, maybe it's just as easy as saying the Philly schools get up for Villanova in a way that maybe the other schools don't as much, and I don't know, but it is shocking because Jay Wright just never lost to these Philly schools, and in fact, he never lost to such an extent that, like, I remember the ones that he did lose because they just stood out to you. Like, oh my God, Jay Wright just lost a Big Five game. It almost never happened, and now Kyle Neptune is dropping him left and right. It's just pretty surprising to me. So with that being said, Kyle Neptune, I'm not putting guys on hot seats, John, but pressure. Like, what coaches do you feel like have a ton of pressure on them? And it doesn't necessarily have to be to keep their job, just pressure in general. Right. What coaches came into this year like, man, this is a massive year for me to win people over, whether it's their fan base, their athletic directors, or otherwise.
I think Jared Haas, somebody at Stanford who hasn't gotten Stanford to the tournament and, hasn't really been a factor in the Pac-12, is a guy who needs to show progress, obviously, this season, and he didn't show it at the Battle for Atlantis. Now, I thought Stanford played very competitive basketball, especially against Arkansas in the first round, but Stanford didn't win. Stanford didn't win a game against Santa Clara before the Battle for Atlantis. And, Mark, this goes back to probably our childhood, but remember just how good Stanford was under Mike Montgomery and how they were always in the NCAA tournament, and obviously, a team with a high seed. And look, Stanford has recruited well. Andrei Stojakovic was a top 25 recruit. Jared Bynum from Providence was a player that, came in with a little bit of cachet. He was part of that Big East championship team, for Providence under Ed Cooley a couple of years ago. So I think that's a team that I think played well at the Battle for Atlantis, but didn't have the results that it won. I think it's going to be important for them to start showing some tangible progress here moving forward.
I think Montgomery got 3 1 seeds at Stanford, if I remember right. They had an unbelievable tear there for a while. Stanford was Stanford was something. I agree with you. I got to be honest. Like when we came into the season, I couldn't believe he was still the coach at Stanford. I just assumed that he had gotten fired already. So yeah, that's a great answer. And I know, John, you don't speculate on speculation. And I certainly don't want to speculate on you speculating on speculation. But at the same time, John, Louisville's got a Kenny Payne problem. What are we going to do to solve this? What could we possibly do to solve this? This is getting uncomfortable.
One thing, and it happens, over the summer that I don't think we highlight enough is the fact that one of Louisville's projected starters and a top 30 prospect, Trenton Flowers, opted to try a professional route rather than go to college and play for Louisville. That was somebody who looked like he obviously had the requisites coming into the year to be one of the better freshmen in the ACC. He never showed up to campus. When you are building a program and you're rebuilding it from really the level that Louisville was at last year, when you're 4-28 and you have the worst season in program history and a proud program at that, you can't afford setbacks. You can't afford things like that not to go your way. So Trenton Flowers not going to Louisville really lessen their ceiling and lessen their talent pool to start the year. Now, with that said, Louisville, I thought, played very well at the Empire Classic at Madison Square Garden and had nothing to show for it. I thought the Texas loss was devastating for Louisville because it played well enough to win the game. But no, if you're Louisville right now, I think you need to feel that a 500 season or a little bit better is what it's going to take to show tangible progress in year two.
Yeah, it's just so uncomfortable to have a guy. I don't know. I've talked about it before. It's everybody. It's just like a massive elephant in the room. And Kenny Payne is the nicest guy ever, but then you got a press conference where he's talking about guys didn't have their right tights, so he didn't want to play in a game because he didn't have the right tights. It's like, what are we doing at a program like Louisville? We've gotten to this point, and you're seeing pictures of the crowd, and there's like 3,000 people at these games, and it's just, I don't know. I feel for that program, and I hope they can figure it out. What coach or program do you not have a catchphrase for, John? Let us inside the creative process. Who are we working on?
I don't force catchphrases.
Okay.
You can't force them. It's got to be organic.
So there's no like up and coming coach, or there's no program that's hot right now that you're like, damn, I need something for that guy or anything.
No, I mean, I don't have a catchphrase for Kansas, Kentucky, or Gonzaga. So
really?
I'm not forcing anything.
I don't think I knew that. Is that a
no?
And you're not actively trying to fix that or fill in those holes.
No, I mean, you kind of, if I think of something, Mark, I go with it, and obviously, I keep hitting it home. Right. But no, I'm not. With taglines can't be forced.
There's no brainstorming sessions with these.
No brainstorming. I mean, you think about it a little bit, but sometimes something just pops in your head, and you're just like, "Wait a minute, that's it."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It kind of like the scene in Back to the Future when, Christopher Lloyd kind of realizes that's how he's going to get Michael J. Fox back to the future, when he can harness the lightning when it strikes the clock tower. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I'm not familiar with that scene in that. What's that guy?
It was 1985. It came out in 1985.
I know, John. I love your movie references are always just like the most. They're great references. You're never wrong. It's just like, yeah, the descriptors you add on them. We all remember the scene, John. We all remember the scene from Back to the Future. It's one of the most famous movies ever. So I was watching the Santa Clara game. We beat Santa Clara, as you said, a massive win, one of the best wins in college basketball we've seen so far this year. We tossed it to you in the studio, and you did a great job of giving us our flowers, John. But I'm worried that this is a familiar trap as an Ohio State basketball fan under Chris Holtmann. We have a tendency to look good in November and December, and then the wheels fall off. I have a vague memory of John Calipari. We beat Kentucky in Vegas in the CBS Classic, and John Calipari says that that's the best basketball team in the country, and then we immediately started losing games. Give me some optimism, John. Tell me that this year will be different, especially from last year, which was so brutal to watch us lose single-digit games left and right last season. Tell me Ohio State will be better, please.
This is the positive that I look at right now with Ohio State. In the game against Alabama on Friday, Bruce Thornton and Roddy Gale were sensational. They combined for 52 of Ohio State's 92 points. Looked like one of the better backcourts in the Big Ten. The next night, the star offensively was Jamison Battle. So all of a sudden, you're looking at Ohio State offensively, and you say, you know what, this team has different ways to skin a cat. I also think that Ohio State did a very underrated job with its transfer class. And obviously everybody looks at and evaluates transfers in different ways, but I'm looking at Ohio State and I'm saying when they targeted, obviously, their transfer class, they wanted scoring and they went and got Jamison Battle. But the other two spots, Dale Bonner and Evan Mahaffey, were meticulously, obviously selected because they were guys who were low maintenance and could have a great impact on the game by not demanding shots. Dale Bonner is a very good reserve guard. And the more and more I watch Evan Mahaffey, and you really have to watch Ohio State play to see his significance, Evan Mahaffey is doing for this Ohio State team what Andre Wesson did a couple of years ago for the Buckeyes. And look, I don't know if Evan Mahaffey is ever going to be a great scorer, but he has a tremendous impact to impact the game, or has a tremendous ability to impact the game by not demanding shots. And I think if you look at it from a coaching perspective, the number one thing you think about offensively is shot distribution and whose hands the ball's in. You never have to worry about that with Evan Mahaffey because he's more than comfortable guarding the opponent's best perimeter player, taking a charge, being a ball mover, being a screener. He is a very valuable blend piece for the Buckeyes.
That's all I needed to hear. Although I'm looking at our schedule, TJ, and the first game in January that we play is Rutgers at home, and suddenly I'm freaking out. But no, I Bruce Thornton has been incredible, John, and I'm getting so excited, but it's just like I don't want to get too excited because getting excited is a dangerous thing. Having hope is the most dangerous thing you can do as a sports fan, and I'm very much there with this Ohio State team. I'm fired up. Before we let you go, a couple things I wanted to throw at you. Number one, being a father, how's it going? What's your diaper changing technique? Rate your abilities. Give us a peek into Jon Rothstein father.
There's only one way to describe it. Every day is a bye game. That's the only way to describe it. Every day is a bye game. It's like you're going up against like a very tough mid-major, like a Rob Senderoff at Kent State or a Greg Campy at Oakland or a Matt Langle at Colgate, and you're down 4 at the under 12 timeout just trying to get out of there alive. That's fatherhood. That's the best way to say it.
That's a great analogy. John, one more thing before we go. I do hate to put you on the spot. I hate to do this, but I would not be doing my job if I didn't address it. The floor is yours as to whether or not you have a comment on a certain Barstool employee, any Barstool employee really, that you may or may not have a feud with. Yeah, I'll just leave it. I'll leave it open like that and let you take it wherever you want to take it, John. Do you have any comment on a do you have any comment, John? We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, got nothing for that, man. Just awesome to reconnect with you, and always great to visit with you. And love, obviously, PFT and Big Cat and Hank and the whole crew. So want to wish everybody, happy holidays. And I'm thrilled for you, man. We've become friends here over the years. And, I know that, you did great things in California, but seeing you now thrive in Chicago, which I've always viewed as a place where Big Ten alumni went post-college.
We belong here, yeah.
It's a perfect fit, man, and I couldn't be happier for all your success.
When we got to get you through Chicago at some point. We got to get you to the new studio and have you check out the new digs. What's your travel schedule now like with the kid? Are you still getting to games and stuff, or are you just sticking on the East Coast, John?
I'll have some sideline assignments coming up for CBS, and you either go there or you go to the studio, because as you know, Mark, it's just a sprint right now to Selection Sunday, just a little over 105 days away, but who's counting?
Yeah. Jon Rothstein, CBS, he's the man. He is the voice of college basketball in a lot of ways, and we appreciate you lending your voice to this show, John. We'll have to do it again soon. I gotta find a way to New York City too to link up there. But Rick Pitino, I got to be honest, kind of ruined my.
No better time to be here, Mark, than the holidays.
I should come during the holidays. I was anticipating St. John's being better, and I wanted to come get a taste of Pitino in the Garden, but that's kind of I might have to wait till next year for that. So I'll figure out.
Well, I mean, the way I look at St. John's, and they're going to play Friday against West Virginia in the Big East Big 12 battle. St. John's got to be 8-2 going into the Big East opener against Xavier December 20th at Carnesec Arena. And I think if they do that and they're 8-2 through 10 games, you got to remember too, St. John's did not have the services of UMass transfer RJ Luis until the last game against Holy Cross. He went out and got 14 and 4 in 16 minutes. Mark, this is somebody who, and I saw at UMass, he's going to add a different dynamic to St. John's.
All right, well, so Rick Pitino maybe isn't. I think in year 2 will be fine, but maybe year 1 won't go as poorly as I feel like it's headed towards. So maybe there is hope yet for St. John's. John, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk soon, buddy. All right. All right, thank you as always to John, who is just never ceases to amaze me. Just ripping stats and schedules off the dome. It's insane how he pulls that off. He just I don't know how he does it. He sit like I for those of you that are listening to the podcast and aren't watching, John, he all the stats, the scheduling, every number you heard, every little tidbit you heard, he was just pulling that from memory, and I know this because he and I did not talk about what we were going to talk about. I asked him to come on the show, did not give him any prep whatsoever, he had no idea what the topics would be. And every team I brought up, he had stats, he had their schedule ready. It was insane. It was that's why he's the best in the business. Thank you, John. And also, he's the other reason he's a pro. I tried to dangle some Rico bait in front of him, TJ, and he wanted no part of that. So, good on him, because I wasn't sure where he stood. I just know that John he doesn't talk about, he just asked me about Rico every so often. Rico talks to me about John every so often. So I thought I would just ask John, and he swerved that really well. So
he gave almost a media trained answer.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
Very well handled by John. So good on him for that. All right, we're gonna get to the cold ass white boy power rankings first. I'll talk about some of the games more in depth than I did with John. So we talked about Kentucky, obviously. I want to call attention to this Kentucky team, where we're at now. So it's no longer like a vision. It's a reality that this team is going to be very good. They already are very good. I know they choked away the game against Kansas, but anyone who watched that game saw enough to realize this is a marathon, not a sprint. And yes, you are going to lose games along the way, but we're seeing it's no longer on paper. It's no longer like if things go right, this Kentucky team could be this. We are now seeing it. And the depth they have, the athleticism, it's off the. So here are the stats. I'm just going to read the stats. Kentucky's averaging 94.4 points per game, which is 3rd in the country. Kentucky is shooting 42.6% from the 3-point line as a team, which is 4th in the country. Funny enough, Miami is 2nd, which kind of goes to my point I made at the top that Miami and Kentucky are similar teams. Just Kentucky's better, kind of. I mean, Kentucky's makeup is better, and they proved it in the game. Kentucky's 4th in the country, though, in 3-point shooting. Kentucky's averaging 20.9 assists per game, which is 6th in the country. And Kentucky still has 3 7-footers waiting in the wings. Literally their only weakness that I see right now, as far as a major weakness, is rim protection on defense. And they have 3 7-footers. And I don't know when these guys are supposed to get healthy/eligible. I don't know if they're going to get healthy/eligible. I do think, for what it's worth, they don't need them in the sense that I still think this team, as currently constructed, can win a national championship. It'll be harder, obviously. Having a guy who can protect the rim would be worth its weight in gold for this team. But they're so fucking talented. And Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham off the bench is just unfair. It's unfair. I mean, they have bringing those two guys off the bench. That is by far the best backcourt off the bench in college basketball. Not even close. I don't even know what other team you would throw in there. To bring those two guys, Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, off the bench. Dillingham's averaging 15.4 points per game and 6 assists per game. Reed Shepherd's averaging 12 and 4. That doesn't make any sense that you're bringing those two guys off the bench. Also, I don't think they should be starting. I think not to say that I don't I mean, John and I talked about it. Reed Shepherd's probably the best player on the team, but I think where they're at right now is perfect. I don't think they should touch. That's an embarrassment of riches that they have at the guard position for Kentucky. And I feel very vindicated. It's a weird position to be in because I do not like Kentucky basketball as a program, but I love being right. And oh my God, I was one of the few people that said this Kentucky team is going to be really good, and I'll be damned. Here we are, blowing the number 8 team in the country off the floor. So there you go.
You're having a great start to your season of takes, I think, with Purdue.
I really am.
Purdue and Kentucky leading the way.
Are they're helping me big time. I feel really good. I'm trying to think of what I've been super wrong about. Dan came on the show and said Michigan State was going to win a national championship. I said sure. I did ultimately land on Tennessee, and Tennessee's hit a speed bump now. So maybe that's bad. But
it's more Connect than it is Tennessee, I feel like, though.
Yeah, my love of Tennessee is definitely Connect. It's not Tennessee. It's definitely Dalton Connect. So, and fuck me, dude. He kind of proved me right against Carolina. I know 37 points was insane. Carolina's offense was good, though. The Carolina game, I was really impressed with how fast they were playing, how they were taking quick shots with confidence, but not bad shots. And, Carolina fans are going to point to Caleb Love and say, yeah, the offense is going to move a lot more fluidly without a ball stopper on the team in Caleb Love. And they're probably right. I mean, that might end up being the difference. Caleb Love, though, seems to have found he seems to have found a great home in Tucson and everything. It's a breakup that seems to be working for all parties now. But watching Carolina's offense was, especially in that first half, was a ton of fun, and they were pushing tempo like you want to see out of North Carolina. They're taking quick shots, but they're taking good shots, and I think that's the important differentiator from Carolina teams in the past. When Caleb Love was on the team, and it wasn't just him. It was a trickle-down effect, I guess, if you want to blame it on him. He was probably the best player, or at least the face of the team. But that was a problem that the whole team would have is they would take quick shots, but they would not always be the best shots. And against Tennessee, the ball was moving. They're pulling the trigger with confidence before Tennessee's defense could get set up. 61 points. I know a lot of that had to do with the parade to the free throw line, but I got to say this to Tennessee fans, and I don't consider myself a Tennessee fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I am on the Dalton Connect bandwagon, so like we do have a we're in unison in that regard. I'm pulling for that guy, so I'm in some way cheering for Tennessee, I suppose. You can't play physical defense. You can't have that be your calling card and have this style of defense where you're going to try to beat the fuck out of people and be super proud of that. And then also at the same time be upset that the other team is parading to the free throw line. Now, I'm not here to say that every call was great. I'm not here to say the refs didn't screw you. I'm just like, this is becoming a consistent theme with Tennessee basketball. It happened against Purdue. It happened against North Carolina. It's going to keep happening. So I'm not necessarily saying that Tennessee fans are wrong to be aggrieved by officiating. What I am saying is it's going to continue to happen. So if you are going to get worked up about it, you might as well figure out how you're going to process it in the future, because Tennessee defense is not going to ever stop being physical. And because of that, I don't think you're going to really – there will be games where you're not called for as many fouls, but I don't think you can be surprised when the free throw discrepancy is this extreme. I don't think you can be surprised. I think that's how Tennessee basketball works. More on Connect before, and we're going to talk about him obviously with the cold ass white boy power rankings segment coming up, which I don't know if it's going to be the best segment I've ever done or the worst. We'll find out together. So the Connect problem, which Jimmy Dykes and Carl Ravitch were talking about a little bit during the game, it's not a surprise. I think this was obvious from the start with this kid that he is a bucket. Tennessee has struggled to score at times in the last few years, and they brought him in for that reason, to be a bucket, to be a release valve on offense, to be a guy you can just give the ball to and say, please help us. He's been that for them. He was certainly that against Carolina, but he doesn't. His defense needs a ton of work, and his effort needs a ton of work at times on the defensive end. You got to ride him. I mean, I know he's hurt now, and I don't know how long he's going to be out as he's nursing this ankle injury, but assuming he gets back to full strength, and this becomes a real debate, which I don't think it should be, but it kind of was during the game last night because Tennessee gets in the big. It wasn't all Connect's fault, but there's kind of Rick Barnes is trying to, in the tug of war of offense and defense. Tennessee was so far on the defensive end. He's just trying to tug it a little bit back towards the offensive end with Connect. So when you think of the identity of this program and this team, it does take on a different shape than it has in the past couple years, because you have a guy in Connect who frankly probably wouldn't have seen the court for Rick Barnes in the past, in the sense if we're going off of the assumption that the defensive effort, the defensive intensity and capabilities are non-negotiable, which has kind of been the case for Rick Barnes. You have to be at a certain level to get on the floor, and then from there, I will play the guys who are great at offense, whatever. He's kind of compromised that a little bit with Connect, but for good reason, because that's how Tennessee's going to get over the hump, is that tug of war comes back toward the middle a little bit. You have to ride him. I mean, I think you continue to trust the process if you're Tennessee. They're still tinkering with lineups. They're still, Ziegler starts in this game, and they're still figuring that out and how Gainey fits it. Like it's going to be a work in progress. I still trust Tennessee long term. I don't think they're going to win the national championship, but I still think, or at least hope, I guess, that there is a path where Rick Barnes figures this out. And right now there's an obvious tinker, and there's probably like an obvious there's probably a sense going on in Rick Barnes's brain of like scare's not there, hesitancy. There's a hesitancy where you're like, this goes against every instinct I have to play a guy and rely on a guy so much who does not bring the defensive intensity that I desire. But then you watch it, like there's just there's some unlearning of habits that he has to have as a coach. And all of that I trust will get ironed out. So I'm not hitting the panic button on Tennessee, even though it's been a little rocky. And the teams they're losing to are good. They're losing to good teams. It's not like it's not like they're getting, they're losing by 15 at home to bad teams or anything. It's so I thought the comeback was impressive too. I think like being down 22 at half in the Dean Dome is not a great spot to be in, and coming back on Carolina is there's no moral victories for a program like Tennessee that has national title aspirations. But at the same time, you're kind of put in an impossible position. You dig yourself a massive hole, and they came out with some fight and made a game of it. So that was cool. But yeah, I was impressed with Carolina. Offense against a defense as good as Tennessee's, which is still a good defense. Tennessee will have a good defense this season, but on this night they did not. They did not have a good defense. And finally, last game I want to talk about, just quickly, Arkansas and Duke. I said it with John. Bud Walton Arena was insane. I got to get to a game there. That's very much on my bucket list. My takeaways from this game, though, Duke is confirmed soft. I mean, they're just a soft basketball team, and I don't know if that's ultimately going to be their Achilles heel or not. Probably will. They're super talented, but that's what jumped out to me was that Duke just got swallowed alive by the atmosphere, by the intensity that Arkansas was playing with. Arkansas's defense was awesome. That to me does need to become like a non-negotiable thing for them. When I think of Arkansas basketball with Eric Musselman, I think of them being a defensive-minded team and using athleticism and swarming the ball and blocking shots like they did against Duke. All of that was on full display against Duke. So that was encouraging to see Arkansas getting back to Arkansas basketball. But for me, like honestly, the game was won by the fans. I mean, the Arkansas fans were fucking bonkers from start to finish. And yeah, I've never been more jealous. I get FOMO when I watch Arkansas basketball, especially in a big game. So I do worry about Duke in the sense that the two games they've lost, that was what stood out to me. It just jumps off the screen at you. It's not like they're not making shots or that they have a roster. Although they kind of do. They need more of a rim protector. But just in general, there just seems to be like the two losses that Duke has suffered this year, and even the win against Michigan State. It was just Michigan State couldn't hit shit. But so I guess chalk it up to 3 times that I've watched Duke this year. They do kind of get pushed around a little bit, and they do feel like they're not they feel a little soft, and I think that's a serious concern. And I do think I like Jon Scheyer a lot. I respect the hell out of him, and I want him to be successful, as gross as that feels for a Duke to be cheering for a Duke coach. But he almost feels like too good of a cop. He feels like he was the good cop as K was the bad cop. You get the bad cop out of there because K would motherfuck guys now. Like K would I think we've talked about it on the show before, but K sometimes has an image to some people as not he's a Bob Knight disciple, though. I mean, like he whatever propaganda Duke has tried to put out in the past, the K is just like a teacher of the game. Like he was that, sure, but like he would motherfuck guys in practice and elsewhere. And I wonder if the dynamic with K and Scheyer for a while was good cop bad cop, and now K's the bad cop, and he was the guy that would motherfuck the players, and Shire's the guy that would come in and throw his arm around him and be like, "Don't worry, buddy. We still he just gets ornery, that's all. That's Coach K. That's how he used to do that to me when I was here too." And is that how he used to talk to players, which worked? But now I don't know if they have a bad cop on staff. They need someone to motherfuck the players. That's what I see when I see Duke, and I genuinely mean that. I think they need someone to. I can't believe this. All the years I made fun of Coach K for doing this, I think Jon Scheyer needs to get rid of the practice gear. He needs to take the D off their chest. He needs to tell the guys you can't wear Duke or whatever the hell else K used to do to try to belittle his players. I think that's something I'll be keeping an eye on with this Duke team. I love Filipowski. That's another take that I got right, TJ, is that the guy that was a preseason All-American is going to be good. I'm just on fire, dude. I'm so fucking good at this. The team that was number 1 for half of last season and brought back the National Player of the Year, for me, I think they're going to be good. I'm right.
Call me crazy.
Call me crazy. Also, the guy that's going to be first-team All-American, I think he's going to be good too. Duke has a ton of talent, obviously, but I that's the number one concern I see with them is I don't necessarily think they're a tough basketball team. But shout out Arkansas. All right, enough of that. We got to get to the cold ass white boy power rankings. And if you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, and all this is gibberish to you, so here's how I define a cold ass white boy. You cannot. It does not just mean that you're good at basketball. That's not enough. An example of that. I don't know. Like who's you can't just be like a knockdown shooter. Say like you can't be. That's not enough. You can't just be a good basketball player who just so happens to be a white guy. That is not a cold ass white boy. You have to be a little saucy. You have to be sweet with it. You have to be a guy who people would say is in his bag, which is not a phrase that I like to use, but other people do. That he has a bag. That guy has a bag, and he's in his bag right now. You basically have to be. You have to have the ability to make black dudes lose their shit on a basketball court. That's really it. Like I think that like if you have that within you, that the way you play basketball makes the black dudes in the crowd go fucking crazy. You're a cold ass white boy, and that's the definition. I also think I'm of the opinion that you can't really be a big guy. I don't know. Other people might disagree, but like I think part of being a cold ass white boy is that it almost comes out of nowhere, and you don't look like a guy who would be a cold ass white boy. And so for that reason, like a guy like Kyle Filipowski or a guy like Grant Nelson at Alabama, great players. They're a little saucy with it at times. I think they're too tall. I think they're too big. They're big guys, and it doesn't jump out at you as much. Frank Kaminsky's another example of a guy who, could potentially have fit the bill, but I feel like he's too tall. He's too tall. So that's how I define it. I don't know if that makes any sense or if anyone gives a shit, but I do because I'm watching all these dudes out there, and I'm like, I really think we might be in a golden age of cold ass white boys in college basketball right now.
Who are some like historic college basketball cold ass white boys? Maybe to get the ball.
I would say Jimmer counts. I would say JJ Redick counts. Even though for a lot of people JJ Redick was a shooter and was just like a catch and shoot guy, he was not. He was definitely a cold ass white boy. I'm trying to think of other guys that stand out. Like even Marshall Henderson, who was crazy. He was sick with it. Like he was something. I mean Jason Williams, white chocolate is obviously like the NBA, the all-time NBA.
Well, he was almost not white. He was so cold.
Yeah, I mean his nickname is literally white chocolate.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I think it's like guys that are just saucy and sweet with it. Can I be any more clear? You gotta be sweet with it.
Saucy, sweet,
saucy, and sweet with it. Have a bag. No, people get what I'm talking about. So here's my power rankings at number 5. Oh, sorry. Before I get to the power rankings, I have an honorable mention. So the honorable mention for the cold ass white boy power rankings this week, and maybe we make this a recurring segment. I don't know. We'll see how it's received. So I say that like as we move forward, maybe I'll take submissions. I'm always willing to check out another cold ass white boy that's playing in college basketball that I don't know about. But honorable mention, the first honorable mention I want to call out is Fletcher Lawyer at Purdue, who had a great game against Tennessee. Does have a little like he's a catch and shoot guy for sure, but he can get a little smooth with it, and like he can be a cold ass white boy at times. But here's why Fletcher Lawyer will never make it on my cold ass white boy power rankings, and I mean this respectfully. I don't think you can play for Purdue and be a cold ass white boy. I think Purdue is a program that just like does not like. There's something about seeing that on the. I think since like Rick Mount might be the last guy that came through that program that like that's just not Purdue basketball. You can't like Fletcher Lawyers is maybe if he was wearing a different jersey, but I mean Matt Painter is building this Purdue program like he's a modern day Bob Knight. I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show that he's running motion offenses. He's recruiting like guys from Indiana. That it's just like it really does. It feels like a modern version of Bob Knight teams when Knight was in his heyday. It's just Painter's not choking his players and throwing chairs and shit. And he's also not winning national championships. I think we should acknowledge that as well. But with that, like Knight didn't have cold ass white boys. Like Steve Alford was probably the closest he got, but like him and Damon Bailey weren't really. They were more like it felt like they were like the clean cut Indiana Jimmy Chitwood types. Now you start getting into the discussion. It was Jimmy Chitwood a cold ass white boy? I don't know. I'm talking myself in circles, TJ. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But I don't think Jimmy Chitwood was. There's a difference in my mind. Hopefully it makes sense to everybody else because it makes sense to me. And I always felt like the Indiana guys, they weren't cold-ass white boys. Those were the gritty lunch pail types, right? And I guess maybe that's ultimately the thing. Is like when you picture a white basketball player and you're picturing the gritty lunch pail, coach's son, all those types of tropes. Okay, there's that type of white basketball player, and then there's the cold-ass white boys. So these are the guys who aren't that. These are the guys that like aren't necessarily – these are the guys that aren't trying to make an impact by taking charges and making the hustle plays and all that sort of shit because they don't need to because they got game, right?
Like Brad Davidson.
Yeah. Is
he cold? Or is he?
No,
I don't think he's cold.
He was not a cold ass white boy. No.
I think the jersey,
great player.
Yeah.
Like Brad was a really good player, but like Brad and Aaron Kraft, same thing. Like he's not a cold ass.
I think the jersey plays a big factor as well.
Yeah,
I think there's certain schools where you can't be cold.
Nick Stauskas was a cold ass white boy at Michigan. That's a good example. Yeah, so you get the idea. But I always felt like Bob Knight's guys weren't, and the best piece of evidence I have to prove that is that's why Larry Bird transferred. That's why Larry Bird showed up in Indiana. He realized that the Hoosiers, that the IU program is not a program for cold-ass white boys, so he had to transfer. And he went to Indiana State, and the rest is history. So anyway, all of that is to say that Fletcher Lawyer, respect his game, but unfortunately he's wearing a Purdue jersey, so I can't get there with that. Number 5 on the cold-ass white boy power rankings, Elijah Pepper at UC Davis. So this is a kid that I don't think anybody really knows anything about. He is currently averaging 22.8 points per game, which is 5th in the country. He averaged 22.5 last year. UC Davis I don't think is all that great of a team, so unfortunately I don't think he's ever going to be super relevant to the average college basketball fan. But tip of the cap to this kid. I get big-time Jimmer vibes from what little I've seen of him, which is mostly just highlights. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and pretend like I'm grinding UC Davis tape, but I have seen enough to be like, that's a cold ass white boy right there. And sure enough, he is 5th in the country in points per game. I don't know. I mean, yeah, fine, I'll do it. I'll recommend watching him. Like if there's a situation where UC Davis is playing on TV, throw him on. They probably won't win the game, but he'll be a bucket and he can create space for himself. You can put it on the deck. He's got in the gym range. Yeah, so he's number 5 on my list, but I also say that with full understanding that most of you listening and watching are going to do nothing with that information. But shout out to Elijah Pepper, UC Davis. Number 4 on the list is someone who is very familiar, or everybody should be very familiar with, and if you're not yet, you will be soon enough. Cam Spencer at UConn. Sorry, TJ, Rutgers transfer. Leads the UConn Huskies, who may or may not be the best team in the country, all told. Like I think Purdue should be ranked number 1. I'm fine with Arizona being 2 and Marquette 3, and all of that makes sense. But UConn is about to play Kansas on Friday night in Allen Fieldhouse. I don't know what's going to happen. That's a really, really interesting matchup. But if UConn comes away like beating the hell out of Kansas like they seem to do against every non-Big East team, there's a very strong argument that UConn is actually the best team in the country. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The point is, Cam Spencer steps into a top 5 team, a team that is defending a national championship, that brings back key pieces, Tristan Newton, Donovan Clingan, Alex Caravan, those 3 are supposed to be the core of this team, and they are. Those guys have been great. But Cam Spencer's the leading scorer. Cam Spencer there's a lot of guys in Cam Spencer's spot that would step in and say, like, all right, I'm coming into a program that just won the national championship. The whole point of being here is, like, I want to play on that stage. No offense to Rutgers, but UConn is playing on a different stage than Rutgers on the national level, and he wants to step up and be a part of something special. There's a lot of guys that would step into that role and be like, I'm going to feel this out. You tell me how I fit in. Cam Spencer went the completely opposite way. He's never met a shot he doesn't like. He's shooting 48% from three on 6.5 attempts a game. He's electric. I mean, the guy was this way at Rutgers. He was your entire offense at times, TJ.
To the point where, and my only concern with Cam, I like him a lot. I was very upset that he left. He did go through cold spells, and that hindered us greatly. It won't hinder UConn greatly because they have a lot more scoring options, but he was our entire offense last year. We won games because he scored a lot of points. We lost games because he didn't score a lot of points.
I shouldn't be, but I am. I'm surprised that he went to UConn and became the guy who's like, I'm going to lead this team in scoring.
I'm very, very surprised. I assumed that he would be like an elite 6-man, but I didn't.
I thought he was just going to be like a knockdown shooter type role, and he's like, no, I'm going to be saucy with it. I'm going to be sweet with it.
I didn't think he was like, he had some cold in him at Rutgers. I didn't think he was a cold ass white boy though.
Yeah, no, he is. He's official. It says it right here. In fact,
right.
I'm looking at it right here. It says number 4 in the cold ass white boy power rankings, Cam Spencer. So if it says it right there, I can't.
Killer Cam, the Camdy man.
The Camdy man. There you go. At number 3 on the rankings, I have Tyler Kolek and Marquette, who. You know, if you're a college basketball fan, you don't need to be reminded who Tyler Kolek is. He's averaging 14, 5, and 5 this year, 52% from 3. He's crafty as shit, always under control. I think we talked about him last show when I was talking about my Maui reactions. Just his ability to get to the rim, where he's not. I mean, I don't mean to say he's like 5'8", but he jumps into dudes and. He's not the longest, tallest guy on the floor, and he's not the most athletic guy on the floor, and he's so crafty and smooth with it and can finish like the reverse layups he's hitting, the little floaters, the junk shots, all that sort of stuff. And also on top of that, he's got the attitude. He's just got like you can feel that from like he makes a play and he kind of like makes like the how do you describe it, like the stink face at the bench almost, where he's just kind of like you all saw that, right? Like I'm nice. I'm nice. You all know I'm nice. I know I'm nice. I was Big East Player of the Year. I'm going to be Big East Player of the Year again this year. His confidence is what stands out with Tyler Kolek, and that's what makes him a cold ass white boy. Never forget, last year Marquette was picked to finish, I think, 9th in the Big East going into the season. Tyler Kolek was asked about this in preseason media days. He had a 2-word quote. It was "fuck 'em." That's what he said. He said, fuck him. Tyler, your thoughts on everyone picking Marquette to finish 9th in the Big East? He said, fuck him. Marquette then won the Big East. Marquette then won the Big East tournament. Tyler Kolek was Big East tournament most outstanding player. Tyler Kolek was Big East Player of the Year. I mean, come on. And now Marquette is in a position to do some great Who runs TJ, here's a question for you. Who runs the Big East right now? Is it Marquette, who won everything last year, swept every award, swept every trophy, every Big East trophy there was to give out? Marquette got it. I actually don't know if that's true, but the ones that I care about, they got. Or is it UConn, who won the national championship, which you think would be a bigger deal, but then it's also like we're talking about who runs the Big East.
I think if you have the natty on you, you got to get taken away.
That's kind of my instinct too, but also like I see the Marquette point of view. It's like, I mean, doesn't the team that won everything in the Big East run the Big East? Anyway, Tyler Kolek's number 3. Number 2 and number 1, you already know who they are. It's just what order are they going to be in. Number 2 is Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard of Kentucky. I said it to John. I already read his stats off. I'm going to read them again. 25 minutes a game off the bench. Off the bench. He is averaging 12.3 points, 3.6 assists, and 3.5 steals while shooting 63% from the three-point line as a true freshman. Who I don't think I know he was it's not like he came out of nowhere. This is a recruit that people have known about. He had offers to play a lot of places, or at least I assume he would have. I'm sure he was a Kentucky. I'm sure people recruiting him knew he was going to Kentucky always, but I don't mean to say that he was like a 0-star recruit or anything, but I think the expectation with Reed Sheppard is that he would be around Kentucky for at least 2 years, if not 3 or 4. And boy, I don't know what NBA scouts have to say. If he can shoot 60, I'll say this: if he shoots 63% from the 3-point line this year, he's a first-round pick. I think you have to draft him for. If you have a guy that can shoot 63% from the 3-point line, I think you as an NBA team would be irresponsible to not draft him. But anyway, all that aside, John said it, I said it. I think he's Kentucky's best player. He certainly is right now. He makes an impact defensively. He somehow Reed Sheppard has somehow found a way to be a cold ass white boy and a coach's son, gritty lunch pail type player. Like he's combined them both. He's just smashed them both together into one basketball player, and it has been an absolute joy to watch. I was on him early, and by that I mean I was watching his YouTube highlights when he was a recruit last summer, and I fell in love with him just watching the YouTube highlights. Like he does everything well. He does everything well. He makes zero mistakes. And just when you think that he's limited because he is a white dude that's a true freshman and is not on NBA lottery boards and all that, he gets smooth with it. He gets like he's fucking nasty, dude. He's so good. He's so good. I love Reed Sheppard. So he's number 2 on the cold ass white boy power rankings. The sky's the limit for this Kentucky team. Can't get enough of them, and I do think Reed. I think like early on at the Champions Classic when I'm sitting up in the media row with Jake Marsh and the 3-man weave guys are up there, and there's just a bunch of college basketball media people. We were jokingly talking about, is Reed Sheppard the best player on Kentucky, but it was like not like a joke, like we were ha-haing. We were just kind of like throwing the idea out there just to see if anyone else would bite on it, and we all decided like, yeah, you can't really say that. That's kind of crazy, but he has been good. He's been really good. So the fact that now that we're here and the calendar's turning to December, and I think you can say Reed Sheppard's the best player in Kentucky, and not only will no one laugh at you, most people seem to like agree with that. Wild, absolutely wild. And I love it. So number 1, I mean, come on. It's Dalton Knecht. It's Dalton Knecht. 37 points against Carolina. There's nothing he can't do offensively. His bag is limitless, except for maybe his ball handling could use a little bit of work, but watching him get to the bucket and then just elevate and in such a surprising way where he dunks on dudes, or if he's not dunking, he just rises above a defender that's on his hip and lays up an unblockable shot. He can obviously shoot. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot off the catch. He does everything. He's unguardable. He's an unguardable college player. If you knew nothing about basketball, absolutely nothing, and you turn on a Tennessee basketball game, and Dalton Knecht was, I mean, we're assuming that he's not having like a total off night. But yeah, you throw on that Carolina game, you knew nothing about basketball. It would have probably taken you, I don't know, 3 minutes to be like, yeah, that guy's really fucking good. That guy, like, you didn't even need to wait to see him score 37 points against North Carolina. Like, the way he moves on the floor as an NBA player, his skill set as an NBA player. I gotta call, like, I have a problem, TJ. I have a Dalton Knecht problem. I'm addicted to Dalton Knecht, and I need to figure this out because it's not even December yet, and yeah, I'm upset. I mean, maybe that's what it was. I do feel like I jinxed him because I tweeted about him. Like I don't really tweet much anymore, but like I was just I'm watching this game and I'm just compelled to just be like, I love Dalton Knecht. I did a basic bitch tweet where it was like, I'm not really saying anything. I'm just for the record, I do love this guy.
Yep.
I hit send tweet, and then like 2 minutes later he rolls his ankle and he's probably going to be out for a little bit. But I'm kind of silver lining this. I think this might be a good thing because I think my obsession I need someone to like pour some cold water on me a little bit. And I think like him not playing for a little while is exactly what I need to just reset a little bit and fall in love with someone else, which will probably be Reed Sheppard and Tyler Kolek. But yeah, shout out to Dalton Knecht. Can't get enough of his game. And there you have it. That's the cold ass white boy power ranking. So I don't know. I do feel like we're in a cold ass white boy golden age, like I said, because there are obviously a ton of you know what really prompted this was I saw Billis's preseason rankings or his preseason All-American team. I think he had all like white guys. I mean, Edey was on there, but then it was like all white dudes. And if I remember right, like his second team was like all black dudes. It was cracking me up. He didn't do it on purpose. Billis is I'm not trying to like cancel the guy or whatever, but it was just like a funny oddity where I was like, that's pretty fucking funny. But white dudes in college basketball are like, there are dudes that are good, obviously, and win National Player of the Year. But there always does sort of feel like it's like a Luka Garza type, who was a great player, but it's like, all right, or like a Tyler Hansborough type, like Tyler Hansborough. It's just like of course he's a great player, of course, but like he's not. All right, it's just like the basketball community at large is like, all right, we get it. Here's your National Player of the Year award. Come on. So to be living in a time where I'm turning on the television and I'm seeing Tyler Kolek and I'm seeing Reed Shepherd and I'm seeing Dalton Connect and I'm seeing Cam Spencer and Fletcher Lawyer and like all these guys. I don't know. It's just kind of nice. It's a nice, refreshing thing to just be like, yeah, these guys can fucking hoop, man. This is awesome. So
is Cooper Flagg trying too hard to be on this list next year?
Great question. Cooper Flagg's a tough one because
cold.
He's going to really challenge my tall guys. It doesn't work the tall guys thing because like I don't know how you can watch Cooper Flagg and it's just like instinctive. It just comes out of your mouth. You're like, that's a cold ass white boy. Like you just watch him play basketball.
Or
like,
especially if you see like the mic'd up clips of it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with.
Right.
The Maine accent sounds a lot like the Memphis accent for some reason.
Right. Yeah, I don't exactly anticipate this being a weekly thing on this show.
Yeah, what does it take to bump somebody into or out of these ranks? Is it like a one-time thing, or do they have to establish a reputation?
I think they have to get me to say "goddamn" on the
right.
I think
if somebody windmill dunks or like drops his nuts on somebody after like a last-second shot. Can they jump right in or?
So you know how you watch basketball and the guy will block a shot and it'll always get picked up on the microphone every single time. He'll say, He'll say, "Give me that shit."
Yeah,
give me that shit. No matter what, give me that shit is the one thing that transcends race, creed, culture. Probably like nationality. I really genuinely believe that like the villages of China. There's some dude blocking shots. You block a shot. Some Chinese guy blocks another Chinese guy. Neither one of them know a word of English, and it just comes out of their mouth. They're just like, "Give me that shit." That's just like how it works in basketball. I think that same instinct, that same reflex that makes you say, "Give me that shit" when you block a shot. That's me watching cold ass white boys, where I say, "God damn, he's good." And I jump off the couch when I'm watching you. So that's it, TJ. That's how I would define it. If you can get me to do that, you will get a spot on the power rankings next time. But I don't know. I don't know how often I'm taking submissions as well. Please send them to me, guys you're seeing, because I don't pretend to know every single player on every single team. I'm not one of those guys. That's Jon Rothstein. He's one of those guys. He knows everything about everybody. I just kind of. I mean, I'm being completely honest. I'm peeling back the curtain. I'm a diehard college basketball fan, but I'm also a guy who just feeds the slop that he's fed. I'm pretty lazy with like the content that I consume. It's just whatever ESPN and Fox and all the others are put in front of me. That's what I'm consuming. So, I don't know how I came across Pepper. I don't know how I came across Elijah Pepper. Maybe I was living in California last year and. Yeah, he got put on my radar, but I remember as I was putting this together, I was like, didn't UC Davis have a kid that could? And then I went back and watched. I was like, yup, sure did. Yup, and he's still there. So yeah, I'm taking submissions. I don't know how often we'll do this, but I just wanted to do it now because Dalton Connect and Reed Shepherd went bananas this week, and
I'll throw one out there that might be controversial.
Go ahead.
I think that Kasai Tominaga might be a cold ass white boy. I don't know how you feel about that, but he's cold.
Cold ass. He's definitely cold. He is definitely cold. That is a great submission. He's a cold ass.
Yeah,
I think white. I think once we get to the white part, it starts to fall apart. But no, dude, he's awesome, dude. Nebraska, 7-0, playing Creighton on Sunday. That's a big one.
Nebraska ball.
Yeah, that's a big one in the state of Nebraska. So shout out to Nebraska. Shout out to that Creighton game. Also, another big in-state game this Saturday is Marquette is at Wisconsin. Big Ten play also getting started this weekend.
Yeah.
UConn at Kansas on Friday night. I saw the Kansas the students are camping out inside Allen Fieldhouse. Is this correct?
I believe they opened the doors on Wednesday.
Interesting.
Wednesday morning.
So they're just like sleeping in the seats?
Yeah.
That's wild.
We got tagged in a tweet by the main page, but like a third of the stadium maybe was full Wednesday morning.
That's wild.
I don't think
I
don't think I'm ever doing that.
I could not do that. Yeah, I couldn't like if you told me I have to. Now I get that they're all like really young and whatever, and I'm probably looking at this through a 36-year-old lens. But yeah, I think I could last like 5 hours.
Yeah,
I think I could sit there for 5 hours and then I would just turn to my buddy and be like, yeah, fuck it, I'll watch it on TV. I'm not sitting here for 3 days. But that's what makes a place like Allen Fieldhouse special, is they have insane fans that will do that. Shout out Colorado State. Colorado State is cooking, dude. Beat Colorado in state rivalry that I said I was looking forward to. I was watching a little bit of that. There was a lot of games on last night that I was flipping through. But Isaiah Stevens had 20. KJ Simpson was balling out for Colorado too. I still like this Colorado team. I like the Colorado State team. Fun stuff cooking. My girlfriend is from Boulder, so I get back to Colorado pretty regularly, and I usually take one winter trip to Colorado. Still have not gone to a game at CU. Got to change that, and I think I gotta figure out a weekend that they're both in town. Maybe we go to that, and I go see some Colorado State and some CU games. San Diego State is very good, but Colorado State in the Mountain West. Maybe I figure out when San Diego State comes to town. I don't know. I've never been to Fort Collins either. This is just a stream of consciousness now. Just like some other stuff I've never done. Never been to Europe, just like Jon Rothstein. So there you go. What else? I had one more. I have to talk about this, and then we can get out of here. The Tyler Johnson thing with Louisville, saying he didn't have the right tights. I mentioned it to John. John is way too nice of a guy and isn't going to shit all over Kenny Payne, and I'm not. I will shit all over Kenny Payne. This is like, Kenny Payne's a nice guy. I get, like, we as a college, like, this is no longer a Louisville problem. This is a college basketball problem. We have to get Kenny Payne out of Louisville. We just have to. I don't wish ill will on his family or him. I hope it doesn't affect him too much personally, but this has gone on long enough. This is one of the more insane things I've ever seen from any college basketball program, much less a program of Louisville's caliber, to have the head coach say that one of his guys didn't want to play because he didn't have the right tights. And then we finally got him the right tights, and that's why he played. The fact that, like, there's so many the fact that this happened at all is insane. Like, I'm not putting all the blame on Kenny Payne, because, like, Tyler Johnson, like, what the fuck, dude? Just play basketball. What are you talking about? You don't have your right tights. It's not like he didn't have any tights. He didn't have the right tights. Just an absolute insane story that he did that he said, I can only play if I have my right tights. Absolutely insane that he told Kenny Payne that like, if I'm a player and I get put in that situation, you always just use diarrhea. You always. Yeah. Advice for you youngsters out there, whether you're playing basketball, you're trying to make your way through corporate America, anything else, you're caught in a situation where you're in trouble, just say it was diarrhea. It gets you out of everything. I had diarrhea, coach. That's why I didn't want to play. That's what it was. I was battling some diarrhea. That's it. But the fact that he told him I didn't have my right tights, that's insane. So it's insane it got to that level. But then Kenny Payne tells the media that. So, like, even once Tyler Johnson tells Kenny Payne could then get in front of the media and just say diarrhea. He could have said that. He could have said anything. For him to tell the media, it's all of it is fucking insane. I don't know. Louisville has just reached a point where it truly, and I mean this genuinely, it is not funny to me anymore. It is, like, actually just sad. Like, everything that has happened to Louisville basketball is sad. And I saw that and I was like, man, the worst part about this, you know who the real victim is in all of this? It's me. I'm the real victim, because this was a story that I should have laughed at and I should have had a lot of fun with. And instead, I just said, this is sad. This is sad. And the fact that Louisville basketball has gotten to that point is disgusting, and we have to get Kenny Payne out. Kenny Payne cannot finish the season. I don't care what it takes. Louisville has to figure this out. They cannot let this man coach in the ACC. They can't let him coach ACC basketball. I don't care that John's telling me that they had a good showing at the Empire Classic and, like, he cannot coach the ACC. He can't coach enough. They got to do something. So, I don't want to call for another man's job, but fire Kenny Payne.
That's big of you.
I don't. I'm not a man. I don't do that. I don't call for other guys' jobs. I don't talk about other people's jobs. He has a livelihood. He has a family. So I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is fire Kenny Payne and do it now. So there you go. Anything else, TJ, before we go?
I just wanted to point out that it is the end of November and Movember. If we could get a facial hair check on the gang.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah. You guys stuck with it.
I stuck with the mustache. I'll be donating to Movember at the end of the month. My best friend growing up, he's a big supporter of that, but I think it's the end of the road for me.
We've come
I don't hate it,
to
but
the end of the road.
Yeah,
What about you, Cody? There it is.
It's been a fun month. I can't wait to get this off my face tonight.
Are
do
you
you do it
donating
tonight, or would you do it tomorrow?
I
guess I'd have to wait till
I guess
tomorrow.
tonight, yeah.
Are you donating your mustache to Locks of Love?
I'm gonna get it
is
framed
that-
for the wall.
Okay.
Yeah, family.
Yeah, I went mustache. I didn't even realize it until after I did it. I was growing my beard out, and then I was ready to shave, and then I was like, I'm just gonna keep the mustache, which I do every so often. And then I shaved, and then I came into work. I saw you guys, and I was like, oh, I just like kind of without even realizing it, I joined the gang.
Yeah,
I joined the Movember
just three
gang.
guys with mustaches.
Beard boys.
Talking ball.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna keep the stash. I'm getting rid of the beard and all.
Yeah, you
Whatever you wanna
should
call it.
do the next challenge is the yeared, as they call it.
The year.
The yeared.
What's that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of in the name. You
The
just
year
you grow your
beard?
beard out for a year. Yeah.
Nah, I'm going for
So-
James Harden's vibe.
Oh yeah.
He has fear the beard. I'm going for salute the stash.
Salute the stash.
Yeah.
All right. You always got something.
No,
Nobody
it's
knows.
always
you're
cooking.
You're always cooking up something.
I do have bad news though.
What's that?
I don't think I'm gonna be able to edit the podcast tonight.
Really?
I don't have the right tights.
I see what he did there.
It's callback, folks.
I see what he did there. That's a callback joke.
Yeah.
That's why we keep you around. That was a good one, Cody.
Thanks, man.
Is that for your generation, for you youngsters? Is that something that you're like, I get it, or you're like, no, that's too far?
I mean, I'm not like a collegiate athlete, but I feel like there at a certain point there is probably like a superstition where you're like, I can't hoop if I don't have my gear. At the end of the day,
because like some
gotta
people are
ball.
trying to make this a greater indictment on Gen Z. Is it, are college guys still Gen Z? Is that Gen Z, or are we getting into like something else?
Yeah, I think.
I
I don't know. Like, there's some equipment. Like, if you didn't have your shoes, I could see
Yeah.
that being an issue. But tights,
I don't
I
see
didn't
how
have
I
my
feel
luck-
like that's a cosmetic choice.
He said I didn't have my lucky underwear. That's what he said. And you still play the game. You play like shit, and then what you do, like, yeah, you might play like shit, but then what you do in the post game is you laugh it off by saying like, I didn't have my lucky underwear. That was the difference, and then that's a little less weird.
Yeah.
But to be like, I'm not playing unless don't talk to me till I've had my
My tights.
If this was someone on
my
your
morning
team,
coffee and lucky underwear.
if this is someone on your team back in the day, like how
Yeah.
much they're getting flamed.
You're letting, you're letting
oh,
the
yeah.
team down.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a blog going up. for
Absolutely.
sure.
Oh, dude, I'm writing an
Yeah.
extensive. I mean, I did it with Will Buford forgot his shoes one time, and that's, as we said, that's an important thing. You
Yeah.
need your shoes. He stole mine from me.
Of course.
Had a great game at Purdue. Yeah, I talked about it with Robbie Hummel. Will Buford balled out in my shoes. It was a like Mike situation. He put on my shoes, he couldn't miss.
Yeah.
And I killed him for that. I was like, Will, what are you doing, dude? How do you forget your shoes? So, yeah, if Will would have been like, I forgot my shoes, so I'm just not playing. We would have killed him for that, and that one actually makes sense. We would have been like, dude,
Yeah,
figure it
that's
out, like
crazy.
find some shoes. Anyway, enough of that. Oh, last thing, Surviving Barstool has been awesome. I just wanted to shout out really the guys that I'm really enjoying watching. I made a power rankings of my overall content enjoyment. No spoilers, don't worry about that. If you're watching Surviving Barstool, I'm not about to spoil anything. I'm just going to give you my power rankings of guys who I'm enjoying the most. These aren't the guys I think are going to win or anything else. These are just like the guys that I every time they're on screen, I enjoy myself immensely. Number 1 is Rico Bosco. I can't get enough of him on this show. He's fucking awesome. Number 2 is Jersey Jerry. Number 3 is Will Compton. Number 4 is Feidelberg. And number 5 is PFT Commenter. And I just want to go on record and say that all 5 of those guys are just content machines in Surviving Barstool. Will and Fights especially are cracking me up. That like they're all cracking me up for different reasons. That's what makes it so good. But Will and Fights are just chilling, man. And I think like that's what I would do if I was on this show is just kind of just coast, man. Just be a vibes guy.
Big Cat low-key did that, but he's too like big of a character to
Right.
not have the spotlight turned immediately on him where people thought he was
Right.
like doing it as a bit or like doing it to try and like
Right.
staying under the radar for the first week is what you're supposed to do in these shows.
Right.
Not ruffle any feathers and
Right.
then figure it out later.
Yeah.
Rico was just also born to be on reality television.
That clip of Rico when he steps.
Yeah.
I'm kind of spoiling, I guess now. So sorry.
Episode 1.
Stop. But it's episode 1 spoiler, and it's a clip that was shared all over social. So I'm not really spoiling the plot of the show. But when Rico stepped out, and they called him out, and he lost his and the specific angle of whoever was filming for social, and Rico's charging at them, and like the phone gets knocked out of his hand. That is, we say this phrase way too often at this company, but that truly is an all-time clip for me. That was an all-time, like, I watched it 100 times and laughed my ass off. It's so good. Surviving Barstool is so good. I have some serious FOMO. I don't think it's so weird, TJ, because I don't think I want to actually do it, but I'm watching it and I'm like, dude, this looks so fun. I want to be a part of this. Yeah, to compete in. I'm like telling myself I have to be on this show the next time we do it, but then I also like check myself where I'm like, dude, you would get eaten alive.
Yeah.
Kirk would eat you alive.
Yeah.
But then I also like see fights and Will, and I'm like, I don't know, they seem to be having fun. I'd probably just do what they do. So
yeah, I know Brandon wants to do it. So maybe getting you guys involved in like the anus guys or something. I think there is a lane for like a bunch of characters that haven't been a part of the show, but
yeah,
this cast is just so perfect for this sort of environment. They're just all like the biggest, like everyone has like a huge ego and like a huge expectations for how to be treated, and then they're all just backstabbing each other. I don't know. It's the best. I think it's the best show we've ever put out.
I would do it. For the record, I would do this show and other reality shows. I oftentimes go back to when KB was on the show and he asked me if I was into the Barstool reality shows, and I thought he was talking about just like being a Barstool employee and coming to the office, which in and of itself is a reality show. And then it never even crossed my mind that I honestly wasn't super aware of like all these reality shows that we do.
Yeah.
And I went in. I officially went in. So yeah. Anyway, I love Surviving Barstool. Shout out to everybody who worked on that. The production's incredible. Can't get enough of it. So I think that's it. Enjoy the weekend of college basketball. Great weekend. UConn, Kansas on Friday night. All those other games going on. Big Ten play, like I said. Marquette, Wisconsin. Creighton, Nebraska. A ton of fun games. We'll talk about all of them on the other side of the weekend. Everybody enjoy. We'll see you then.